Alright, good afternoon. My name is Jake Holland. This is Swift News coming live from Lansing, Michigan. And today, some more bullshit. Um, as we've covered a couple days ago, the U.S. is considering joining the war against Iran. And they are considering the nuclear option, which is insane. Trump has stated that he will not make an announcement in the next for the next 2 weeks. Um, Again, some bullshit, but nonetheless, here we are. Um, no further, no further comments from the U.S. government. Israel is still. Israel and Iran both are still continuing to attack each other. The biggest development from yesterday was the hospital that was hit. Let me pull that up. So, and this comes after the Israeli attacks against civilian infrastructure in Iran. Iran retaliated first against I believe it was an oil refinery in Haifa. They bombed it and it was set ablaze, as you could expect with an oil refinery. Israel targeted, I can't remember exactly when this was, but Israel targeted a hospital in Iran. Very similar to what they do in the Gaza Strip. They just make up an excuse and all of a sudden hospitals are valid targets. Let me make sure I'm getting my timeline correct. Of course, there's Iranian strikes Israeli hospital. Iranian missile hits main hospital. Iran strikes Israeli hospital. Of course, this is like I can't find it. Jesus. Wow, I type Iranian hospital targeted, and the first thing is Israeli hospital hit by Iranian missile strike, which is crazy. But nonetheless, it's a lot of hypocrisy that's going around about this hospital that's hit. Now, I'm just trying to find a picture, to be honest. Ooh, God, jump scare. Oh, this is just articles. Siraka Hospital in Beersheba, which I believe is in Tel Aviv. But nonetheless, Iran did hit a hospital. There have been statements that they were trying to attack a military facility. I don't know exactly what kind of military facility, but I also am not too sure on the direct targeting capabilities. I don't think they have any laser guided missiles or anything, so this could have been an instance of slightly misguided missile. And as far as I've heard, the section of the hospital that was directly hit was evacuated, which is good because obviously, as much as the state of Israel itself has committed many atrocities, obviously, at the end of the day, nonviolence is what at least as hopeful as I can get with this. Nonviolence is the end goal, and so it is good to hear that no one was hurt. The same cannot be said for the hospital that was struck in Iran, nor the hospitals that have been destroyed all across Gaza. Now, of course, today, there was something in here that I wanted to touch on. And all of a sudden, show restraint and return to diplomacy. Bro, what? That's there. There have been a lot of Iranian officials that have stated that the time for diplomacy has passed. That they are no longer looking for a diplomatic solution. But this is because of the. I mean, Israel attacked Iran in the middle of denuclearization talks with the U.S. So obviously, Iran is not going to respect any more "quote unquote" um, denuclearization talks under a ceasefire. I mean, you can't even trust a ceasefire with Israel. They've broken. I know as recently as I believe in March, they broke the ceasefire with Hamas in Gaza and continue to indiscriminately destroy the city. Um, one, and I'm just pulling from some tweets here. There are a couple different things I'm going to pull up, but this was one thing that I found really interesting, kind of cool, kind of badass. And just, I mean, really ballsy stuff. A lot of respect for these people because while it's a small hit, it's a hit nonetheless. Palestinian activists breached a UK airbase, damaging 2 military aircraft. This was a Royal Air Force Breeze Norton base in Oxfordshire on the 20th of June. Oh, so this was like earlier. So this was like early in the morning in Great Britain. So this was like, I don't know. How long ago was this? 5:04 a.m. So, not this hard, like 8 hours ago. So this is pretty. Just, I mean, that's crazy, dude. People on Twitter are insane. But nonetheless, I just wanted to bring some light to that. That people are acting out. Like all across the world, there is dissent against what Israel is doing in the Middle East. I mean, they are the belligerent aggressors in every scenario, leading all the way back to, I mean, the last 30 years, 35 years, 40 years, especially, but the entire time that they have been colonizing Palestine, they have been the aggressors. And more and more people every day are realizing what's going on. And that is, that inspires hope, at least in me. I don't know. Hopefully there is a civil end to this. But anyways, let's tune into this, see what they're doing. They are on the weather. Cool. Let me go through. There are a couple other tweets regarding what's going on in Iran. Only 23% of American voters can identify Iran on a world map. Which just goes to show, like, I mean, obviously, some of that 77% is going to be against the war in Iran, but I would be willing to bet that a majority of the people that are pro war with Iran are in that 77%. I don't think they know where Iran even is. I mean, we look at Ted Cruz and his interview with Tucker Carlson, which is an astounding shift from Tucker Carlson to like being an actual journalist again. That is something I wanted to watch as well. Was the let's see, this is in my playlist. I think it is. Yeah. Oh, good lord. That's a lot. My ad block doesn't work anymore. YouTube did something with ad block, but Why?
It's good to be with you.
Why do I have Russian captions? Oh, they're Arab. That's not Arabic. What? Okay. Let's see. I mean, all of this is good stuff, to be honest. Just exposing Ted Cruz for being an absolute fraud.
Thank you very much for spending the time to have this conversation.
It's good to be with you.
So you've come out for regime change in Iran, as distinct just from taking out the nuclear sites.
Right
What is regime?
And like, again, Tucker Carlson has been a right-wing nut and was the head of the Fox News propaganda machine for years. He has since. He was like, well, why was he let go again? I'm a bad journalist for this, but. Tucker Carlson was hired for Fox News primarily due to a combination of factors, including legal trouble stemming from the Dominion voting systems lawsuit, internal conflicts, and concerns about his conduct, including misogynistic language and controversial viewpoints, according to news reports and analysis. Right, and I think it was the biggest thing was the Dominion voting systems lawsuit, because obviously that is an actual lawsuit. I don't think Fox News cares as much about misogynistic language or controversial viewpoints, because that is their bread and butter. But yeah, a lawsuit is a lot more tangible of a problem. Okay. Anyway.
Regime change look like in Iran?
Somebody else in charge.
But yeah, this is just an astounding show of journalism from Tucker Carlson, because I have not watched this in full, so this will be interesting. I may not cover all of it today, but I kind of just want to skip to some good points. But from what I've seen, I mean, he puts Ted Cruz on the spot time and again, which I love to see.
How do you get there?
I'm from Texas, and I do not like Ted Cruz. That man has done nothing helpful for the state. I mean, I can't think of a single thing he's done since I was aware he existed. So that's just my take on the man.
Look, that ultimately has to be a popular uprising from the people. And it's not a complicated question. Is America better off with a country that has a leader who hates us and wants to kill us, or to have a country with a leader who likes us and wants to be friends with us?
And this is where we diverge into some bullshit. The notion that the U.S. has the right to decide who leads a country is insane. Also, just saying that the Iranian leadership wants to kill Americans is false. While hearing chants of death to America can be scary, understandably so, they are chanting death to America. They're not chanting death to Americans. They're not chanting death to American people. They're chanting death to America, which is a death to the very institution that has, for decades, caused we have influenced decades of war in the Middle East. Without our intervention, the Middle East would look way different. And sure, they may be under some questionable leadership. I'm not going to say that the Iranian leadership, as of right now, is like perfect. They're not. But I mean, neither are we. We have our own issues, right? The U.S. has an Islamophobia problem. Our citizens want. It's just really ironic to hear him say this, because we have people in this country who are bigoted enough to say that they want people in the Middle East dead. There's the hateful term of the only good Muslim is a dead Muslim. This is something that a lot of people in this country, unfortunately, share a view on, because mainly they're Christian fundamentalists, and they want to and hand in hand with that, white nationalists, and so they obviously want to get rid of other religions and also people that aren't white. But nonetheless, this is just ironic as fuck coming from Ted Cruz.
And
Definitely the latter's better.
of course.
Yeah.
And so that's not a complicated statement. Look, I believe
It
you look
is.
across the
You're
world.
simplifying it. That doesn't mean it's simple. You can simplify it with words for your stupid ass base, but that doesn't just make it simple.
When you have countries that have dictators that are viciously anti-America. Venezuela, Maduro hates us. Would we be better
Bro, Venice.
off with Maduro out of power? Absolutely. I want our enemies out of power, and I want our friends in power.
I could not agree more.
So the thing with that is that there is no Iranian leadership that we could put in power, bar an entire military takeover from the U.S. directly. There is no one that we could like force into power that's going to be our friend, like without any, like the Iranian people and people in the Middle East at large don't like America as an institution. They don't like our government. They don't like our military. And that's understandable because we have killed hundreds of thousands of Arab people that are completely innocent, that have nothing to do with the reasons that we went to war, you know? I mean, it's cause and effect, and America has been the cause time and again. So the statement that Ted Cruz wants our friends in power is a stupid statement. Like that, there's nothing that we can do to make that true at this point. Like it's like 30 years too late for that.
Question's how do you get there?
Of course.
And we've been trying to kill Maduro for quite some time. We have troops there, as you know.
I don't know that we've been
That's
trying to kill
crazy.
Maduro.
Yeah, we have. And I think you know that. And
I don't know that.
okay, well, as a statement of fact, we have. So
We do have massive sanctions. We tried to pressure him out of office.
yeah,
I'm
and there's all
not,
kinds
not
of
aware
stuff.
of efforts.
I'm just saying there's a lot of pressure coming from various parts of the U.S. government on that government, and it's still there.
Yeah.
Same, the country of our ancestors, Cuba, 1959, we've been working on that. Hasn't worked. So it's I think we both agree it's hard to do.
It absolutely is hard. And look, I think you're
It's
reasonable
hard it's hard to meddle in the affairs of other countries' governments. That's the awareness here is
ask
astounding.
how do we produce that? And I think there's a distinction between what your objective is and the means to get it. There are
Right.
all sorts of things I would say we would be better off. We'd be better off in China without Xi there. Should we invade China and topple Xi? Of course not.
Better off with no national debt.
There are lots of things.
Totally.
But it's good to say, all right, what are our objectives?
Right.
And so with the Ayatollah in Iran, saying you're for regime change, I don't view as complicated. I mean, the guy literally leads mobs chanting death to America. So that
But this is not the regime over America. They do not reign over America. This is not our regime to change. If the people of Iran want a regime change, they will put a regime change in. They've done it before, they can do it again. And they might. They might not like the Ayatollah, but they don't hate the Ayatollah like they hate the U.S. And again, by the U.S., I mean our military, not the people, because, excuse me. God, I mean, Americans have gone there, and largely the Iranian population has no problem with Americans. Now, I'm sure there are some people who are truly bigoted against Americans, or I should say prejudiced, because, it's not like an American citizen is not automatically a marginalized group, so it's not necessarily bigotry, but you know what I mean. They may have hate for people of America because they're ignorant, you know what I mean? Like, we have ignorant people in this country, far more than Iran, by the way, but I'm sure there's some ignorance there in directing that hate towards the people, but by and large, the anger is with our military. The anger is with our government. So, yeah, it's not our regime to change.
That's not good.
Definitely not good. But the reason I think it's important to get a little more detailed about how that might happen is because there's military action in progress, which we're supporting. And the president has said clearly, including last night, that he is focused on eliminating the capacity of the Iranian government to produce nuclear weapons. You are saying we need to use military force to effect regime change.
I have not said that.
Oh, I must have.
No, I have not said that once.
Okay.
I don't think we need to use military force to do regime change. I said I support it. I would like to see it happen. You asked me how should it happen? A popular uprising. What I've advocated for. All right, let's step back a second.
So, and the funny thing about this is, he'll advocate all day for a popular uprising in a different country, but we have 5 million people protesting against our president, who's, I mean, the past 6 months have been a fucking disaster, as we've seen, and there's popular dissent for our president. A lot of people don't like him, rightfully so. But, you know, if there were any inkling of a populist uprising in America, guess what? The Marines would be deployed, and then they would actually kill people. That's another thing I wanted to talk about, was the Marine deployment to LA. Hopefully I don't forget to cover that, but just wanted to talk about the bullshit that was.
You and I, we've known each other a long time. I would say we agree on about 80% of the things on Earth.
For sure.
And there are a lot of things, and we can get into the nitty-gritty of foreign policy as much as you want. There are a lot of things on which you and I agree, not just a little bit, but violently.
I totally agree. I was rooting for you in your last campaign, for sure.
Well, thank you. Look, you have been heroic on the border. You've been one of the clearest and best voices in the whole country on securing the border and on the absolute crisis we're facing. And in Texas, I see it and live it every day. In COVID, in fact, you may recall, in the middle of the COVID lockdown, I was out walking my dog when the whole world was shut down and we were living in lunatic times. And I called you and said, Tucker, your nightly monologues are the single best thing on television. Like I watch them like an injection of crack. Okay, I'm mixing my metaphor because you don't inject crack, but you get what I'm saying. No, I mean, you were standing up and speaking like, what the hell are we doing, in a way that we desperately, desperately needed. And so whether it's securing the border, whether it's the insanity of COVID lockdowns and the vaccine mandates, whether it is...
Yeah, the insanity of making sure, you know, a threat to humanity on a biological level. They just wanted to make sure that didn't wipe us out. The insanity of the vaccine mandate.
Is the Second Amendment or the First Amendment. You and I agree on a ton of stuff. The 20% where we disagree, I do think is meaningful. And it's mostly in the foreign policy space. And what I would say, if you'll allow me to get a little theoretical, and then I'm happy to get specific.
Yes.
For a long time, people had perceived two different poles of Republican foreign policy. There have been interventionists, and those have been people like John McCain and Lindsey Graham and George W. Bush. And there have been isolationists. And the most prominent of those have been Ron Paul and Rand Paul, and there are others. And people perceive those are the two choices. You got to be one or the other. I've always thought both were wrong. I don't agree with either one. The way I view my own foreign policy...
I'm with you, by the way, for whatever it's worth. Yeah. I agree with you.
Okay, good.
I don't know who set up that binary, but there are lots of choices, actually.
I mean, people sort of naturally fall into... I think they want to classify people, and they're like, okay, you're one or the other, and you got to be all or nothing. And the interventionists, it seems, have never seen a country they didn't want to invade, and that doesn't make any sense to me. And the isolationists, I think, don't take the threats to America seriously, and I think that's naive, and it doesn't work.
No,
and so
I think an isolationist just realizes that we can protect the country from within the country. And, you know, maybe we've got some, like, intel and logistics on a global scale, but we don't need military action on a global scale ever. That's insane. Like, at this point, I mean, obviously, in a perfect world, like, all the money in the world would be able to feed everyone in the world. Like, we can do that. There's money, there's resources. It just hasn't happened because capitalism. But to say that it's naive to want to bring our military back in and focus on defending our country from within the country, stopping terror attacks from within the country, which is possible. It's possible. We can ramp up our intel and logistics, cut back on, occupying forces and all these advanced weaponry that never gets fucking used. All the bullshit, really. And focus on defending this country from within the country. I don't think that's an insane or naive notion. I think it can work. I don't know that we've ever tried that, but I think it can definitely work. I think it's just Ted Cruz is a little bit of a war hawk. He's not the biggest one for sure, but I think he likes the idea of America showing out in war. So I think that's where his words are stemming from.
So my view, I consider myself a third point on the triangle. And
Really?
what I describe that as is that I am a non-interventionist hawk, which sounds a little weird. But what do I mean by that? I mean the central touch point for U.S. foreign policy and for any question of military intervention should be the vital national security interest of the United States. How does this make America safer? How does this protect Americans? If it does, we should be strong. And actually, another way of conceiving what I'm saying, I'm speaking theoretically, but Reagan referred to it as peace through strength. And actually, I think Donald Trump's foreign policy is very much what I'm describing, a non-interventionist hawk, where he understands that, and I think this is historically true, the best way to avoid war is being strong. That weakness and isolationism, I think, encourages war. So going back to regime change, where you started in Iran.
Just to make, I don't think I disagree with anything you've said, so we may not be that far apart, really, because you said that the single criterion for making decisions about America's foreign policy.
You know what's crazy? Is that Reagan sold weapons to Iran. You know how fucking ironic that is, Ted? The thing you just said about how Reagan was, what did he say?
Policy is agree with any
encourages being, this is isolationist hawk, true. The best way to avoid war is being strong. That weakness and isolationism, I think, encourages war. So going back to regime change, where you started in Iran.
Where did he mention Reagan?
Policy is very much what I'm describing, a non-interventionist hawk, or referred to it as peace through strength. And actually,
okay.
I think Donald...
Right, peace through strength. I guess strength is making money off of weapon sales to Iran. And let's do a little more digging. Let's see, the Iran-Contra affair. Let's see, also referred to as the Iran-Contra scandal, the Iran Initiative, or simply Iran-Contra, was a political scandal in the U.S. centered on arms trafficking to Iran. So this wasn't even legal, it was trafficking. So it was illegal trafficking of arms to Iran, facilitated by senior officials of the Reagan administration. They were subject to an arms embargo. Yes, sale of arms deemed illegal. Funding the Contras, an anti-Sandinista rebel group in Nicaragua, under the Boland Amendment. 411 to 0 vote and signed into law by Reagan. Further funding of the Contras by legislative appropriations was prohibited, but the Reagan administration continued funding them secretly using non-appropriated funds. Crazy, right? Peace through strength. Peace through strength. This is neither peaceful nor strong. This is weak and greedy, and it's warmongering. Because, I mean, not only are we selling, let's see what they sold. Parliament attempts to free 7 U.S. hostages being held in Lebanon by Hezbollah and Islam. As connected to the IRGC. Arms for hostages was proposed by this fucking guy. An expatriate Iranian arms dealer. Nice. Let's see. To not trade arms for hostages. I'm trying to see what they sold. So it's too wrong. The short-term dimension concerns the 7 hostages. The long-term dimension involves the establishment of a private dialogue with Iranian officials on the broader relations. They sought specifically the delivery from Israel of 100 TOW missiles, which I don't know what TOW missiles are. Anti-tank guided missile, widely used weapon system in the U.S. military and among allied forces, and Iran. Are known for its effectiveness against armored vehicles and fortifications. So, we sold those to Iran in exchange for funds to fund the Contras, which is not too much about the Contras, but Oliver North, this fucking okay. This guy was on television talking about how Iran has nukes, or like they can make nukes, and that's why we need to bomb them. Which is crazy, because like he was indicted for this. He was indicted for selling weapons to Iran, like federally, and now he's out of prison talking about how we need to bomb Iran because they have too many weapons. Isn't that the irony of American foreign policy? No long-term, foresight or anything. Died the day after Congress speaking in public hearings on Iran-Contra. That is interesting. Not going to say it's foul play, but I'm not going to say it's not either. Let's check in over here. Geneva.
Consistently been the Iranian position.
Ready to consider diplomacy once aggression stops.
Nuclear facilities and attacks on Iran by Israel more generally. He also said that there was a serious violation of international law. He said that Iranian defense capabilities are non-negotiable, perhaps hinting that that request by the Western nations for Iran not just to not enrich uranium on its soil, but also to curb its ballistic missile program. So it really sounds from hearing all of that the two sides have really not met anywhere in the middle or anywhere close to it, coupled with the statements that we've also had. Sorry, it's very busy here, as you can tell. Lots of security personnel still milling through. Coupled with what we've heard already from the European diplomats, who really only just repeated things that we have also heard before about the need to de-escalate, about the need for Iran to continue their talks with the United States, something.
And I mean, the thing is, too, like, they have been actively denuclearizing the country, like, to degrees. Maybe not that, not complete denuclearization, but denuclearization to the level where it's only used for like civil energy production. You know what I mean? Like that's the most ironic part of all of this is that they were ready to like. It's very easy to check and see if they're enriching uranium to the point of a nuclear bomb. You know, it's very easy. But anyways, I'm glad I checked it out. France, Germany, and UK foreign ministers meeting in Geneva to find a diplomatic solution to the crisis. Russia and Chinese presidents condemn Israel's actions and call for diplomatic solution. Yeah. That, I mean, I don't know. I don't think. 240 people killed, more than 1,400 injured in Israeli strikes on Iran. Like, they're just, Israel is gearing up to do to Iran what they have done to Gaza for the last 20 months. So, I highly doubt they're going to genuinely come to the table for talks on diplomacy, but I guess we shall see and find out. What the fuck is this? Anyways, let's keep reading about the countries. I love learning, man. I love learning shit, even if it's bad shit. I have no doubt that he was told about the use of residuals for the countries and that he approved it enthusiastically. Breaking new Iran deal. October 20, 1991. So yeah, I mean... Question indisputable precisely the level at which he chose to follow the operation details. There's no doubt, however, that the president set to use policy towards Nicaragua with few, if any, ambiguities, and then left subordinates more or less free to implement it. Domestically, for the job, his popularity, his approval rating suffered the largest single drop for any president in U.S. history. I think Trump might have broken that. He's near 40%. Let's see what he started at. Obviously, this is not. Lowest of any newly elected president in the past 80 years at 100 days. I think that's the stat that I was looking at. But, I mean, 38% is crazy. %50 of voters, including 16% of Republicans, wanted to see congressional Republicans stand up to Trump more. That's not going to happen. That is not going to happen. Anyways. Mehdi Hashemi, the leader of the scandal, was executed in 1987, allegedly for activities unrelated to the scandal. Full video confession to new ministry controls. Highly suspicious. So he may have been coerced into responding. Yeah, this guy was on Fox News like last week talking about how we need to bomb Iran. Crazy. I want to know more about Contras, dude. Covert military assistance from Taiwan to the Contras was exposed, with reports indicating that Ku Cheng Kong, the co-founder and chairman of World League for Freedom and Democracy, which is an international non-governmental organization of anti-communist politicians and groups. It was founded in 1954 as the Asian People's Anti-Communist League under the initiative of Chiang Kai-shek. I have a feeling that they're not around anymore, considering that the biggest power in Asia is, well, they're not really communists, but you know, they claim to be communists. they're communist to a degree. Anyways, Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs later confirmed the activities. Of course, fucking President George H.W. Bush pardoned 5 administration officials who had been found guilty on charges related to the affair. Interesting. So this is like right before Clinton came into office. Bush pardoned 6 members of the Reagan administration who had been charged with crimes including perjury, lying to Congress, or obstruction of justice. That's it? Oh, okay, so he just pardoned people who were lying to Congress about what went on. The other folks, I'm sure Oliver North was in. Who was it? Let's see. Or well, wait, it was right. It's up here. Was it? Oh, it was not. Wait, so Oliver North just like served his time? I find that very unlikely. The Iran-Contra cover-up, which has been continued more than 6 years, has now been completed. Being implicated himself in the crimes of Iran-Contra by evidence that was committed like during the Wide River trial, and notice there's a pattern of deception driven by Bush. Wasn't he in the CIA? Wasn't he the director of the CIA? That would make sense, because, I mean, the CIA would be who was involved in paying Contra. I still want to know what Contra would do, because to be completely honest, I don't know. So I want to find out. History of Nicaragua. The Contras were the right-wing militias who waged anti-communist guerrilla warfare against the Marxist governments of the Sandinista National Liberation Front and the Junta of National Reconstruction, which came to power after the Nicaraguan Revolution in 1979. So, yet another example of the U.S. Funding a militia in order to uproot Marxism. And folks want to say socialism doesn't work. This is why. The CIA is why. I'm not the first one to say this, obviously, but the CIA is the reason that socialism doesn't work. Yo, if Zoran Mamdani gets elected, they gotta be vigilant. Holy shit. Contra taxes feature terrorism and human rights violations against civilians. Great, we funded that too. The Reagan administration said that the Contra's tactics did not include attacks against civilians. The CIA said that Contra-terrorism resulted from the poor discipline characteristic of irregular forces. Well, whose fucking fault is that? Terrorism was not the official military doctrine of the Contras, and that the Contra leader responsible was executed. The Global Terrorism Database reports that the Contras carried out more than 1,300 terrorist attacks. Good lord, bro. 1,300 terrorist attacks, mostly in opposition to the Sandinista government. Let's see. this? Public services. Putting terrorism in context. 113,000 terrorist attacks starting in 1970. Yeah, no, but that's a lot. I have to pick that one up. That's great. Let's see. Not a monolithic group, but a combination of three distinct elements of Nicaraguan society. Ex-guardsmen of the Nicaraguan National Guard and other right-wing figures who had fought for Nicaragua's ex-dictator Somoza. Ex-dictator. We funded the guard of the ex-dictator. That's crazy. Why we always fucking with the dictators and not with the people who just want everyone to live, you know, by decent means. We did the same thing in what was it, Chile? We overthrew that government and put in a dictator by the name of what was his first name? Pinochet is his last name. What was his first name? Pinochet. And this guy, Augusto José Ramón Pinochet Ugarte, was a Chilean military officer and politician who was the dictator of Chile from 1973 to 1990. Oh, he was arrested? I did not know that. Human rights abuses in Chile. I'm going on a huge rabbit hole here, but I like digging up all this information. It's fun. Human rights abuses in Chile under Augusto Pinochet were the crimes against humanity, persecution of opponents, political repression, and state terrorism committed by the Chilean armed forces, members of Carabineros de Chile, and civil repressive agents, members of a secret police during the military dictatorship of Chile under General Augusto Pinochet from 1973 to 1990. The number of direct victims of human rights violations in Chile accounts for around 30,000 people, 27,255 tortured, and 2,279 executed. In addition, some 200,000 people suffered exile, and an unknown number went through clandestine centers and illegal detention. The systematic human rights violations that were committed by the military dictatorship of Chile under General Augusto Pinochet included gruesome acts of physical and sexual abuse as well as psychological damage. From 1973 to 1990, Chilean armed forces, the police, and others who aligned with the military junta were involved in institutionalizing fear and terror in Chile. This is yet another example of dictatorship and oppression and, any other adjective that you would like, noun or adjective that you would like to pull from this. The U.S. put this guy in power. So, let's see. The Cruz aftermath. Henry Kissinger. God damn it. Piece of shit. Rest in piss, bro. So, for over 2 years, there were up to 3,811 prisoners that were being held in the National Stadium. 7,000 political prisoners in the National Stadium has been counted on 22nd of September 1973. Nevertheless, it is often quoted in the press that some 40,000 prisoners were detained in the stadium. Charles Horman, a U.S. citizen who was killed during the coup itself, Chilean songwriter Victor Jara, and October 1973, Caravan of Death, where at least 70 persons were killed. Other operations include Operation Colombo, during which hundreds of left-wing activists were murdered, and Operation Condor, carried out with the security services of other Latin. So this is very telling of the intentions of the U.S. intervening in Chile and placing Pinochet into power. I'm trying to find where it talks about how he got there. U.S.-backed coup through President Salvador Allende, a socialist. Yeah, again. No, need I say more? And like, I don't even. Is there? Yeah, politicide. Lots of scary shit. And this is what our government still wants for people that live in the country. You know? They should definitely put Henry Kissinger on this list. Yeah, I mean, crazy stuff. And with countries. Allies to Contra, United States, Argentina, Brazil, Chile, Honduras, Israel, Mexico, Taiwan, and the FSLN, which is the San Indonesian National Liberation Front. Oh, opponents FSLN. Okay. But yeah, interesting that you have, and I also don't know why Taiwan is here. I guess they were also total history behind Nicaragua's break with Taiwan. Yeah, I don't know the full extent to that relationship, but this one, because like if it was just Argentina, Brazil, Chile, Honduras, and Mexico, like these are not world superpowers, right? These are countries in the region that may have more of a stake in the regime in Nicaragua. But, no, and what is overthrowing the left-wing FSLN government in Nicaragua. And, like, no matter what side of the spectrum you're on, funding a militia in another country to overthrow their government because you don't like their politics is, I mean, that's some fascist shit right there. And we've done it multiple times. So let's get back to this goddamn. I might watch this too.
Donald Trump's foreign policy is very much what I'm describing a non-interventionist hawk.
Big
where
but anyways.
He understands that, and I think this is historically true, the best way to avoid war is being strong. That weakness and isolationism, I think, encourages war. So going back to regime change, where you started in Iran.
So just to make, I don't think I disagree with anything you've said, so we may not be that far apart, really, because you said that the single criterion for making decisions about America's foreign policy is America's national interest.
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah. Which is also
Right,
America first. That's another way of...
But that's so subjective. And also, America first is bullshit, bro. It's always been Israel first.
putting that
I
as
think
well.
it's the definition of it.
Yeah.
It's hardly breaking news that the U.S. dollar has been gravely devalued because the entire would be though. Smart youth that's for being treated.
I think particularly are. And from what you've said publicly, I think on Iran in particular, you and I disagree. And
Iran.
all right, let me contrast it when Obama was president. When Obama was president, you remember he talked about wanting to have military action against Syria. And at the time, I tried to keep an open mind to it. I said, okay, let me listen to the commander-in-chief, describe to me how this is in America's interest and what your plan is. And Bashar Assad was a bad guy. He was killing his own citizens, and he had chemical weapons that were very dangerous. I could conceive of a commander-in-chief laying out a plan for, okay, we're going to go in and say, grab the chemical weapons and leave. Like, I could see that if there was a real threat to America and there was a plan to prevent that, I could see supporting that. So I wanted to hear what he had to say. And I listened both in classified briefings and public questioning. And number one, their public defense of it was incoherent. So John Kerry said, we're going to engage in an unbelievably small strike. I think that's a quote. I'm like, okay, and to do what? At the time, there were 9 major rebel Islamic groups in Syria. I'm like, okay, I agree, Bashar Assad's a bad guy. You topple him. And one of the 9 other groups takes over. 7 of them were affiliated with radical Islamic terrorism. You had Al-Qaeda and Al-Nusra. I'm like, wait, how is it better to have lunatics who hate us in charge? Assad's a bad guy, but I don't want worse guys in charge. Obama administration couldn't give an answer to that. And ultimately, when you press them, John Kerry in particular, I pressed, and he would say, well, we need to defend international norms. Like, what the hell's an international norm? I don't know what it is, but I'm not interested in putting U.S. servicemen and women in harm's way to defend one.
Amen.
So I opposed the Syria attack and opposed it vocally. And it was interesting. Rand and I agreed. Rand's a friend of mine. But we agreed with that position for different reasons. What I was asking is I think the question we should ask, how does this make America safer? The Obama administration couldn't give me an answer, so I opposed it. I think Iran is very different.
Let me ask what you think of how Syria wound up, because Bashar al-Assad now lives in Moscow.
Yeah.
He was taken out by our allies, and he's been replaced by a radical Islamist who was affiliated with ISIS. So is that a win or no?
Unclear. Look, Syria's a mess, so I've consistently opposed.
But we had a secular leader in a religious enough to think.
I could be mistaken, but I think the current leadership that took over the Assad regime in Syria has stated that while they are still jihadists, they are not jihadist internationally or something like that. Like, basically, they're going to enforce jihad, but only in Syria, which is a interesting take, because, I mean, that's just, like, not jihad. But, anyways.
Diverse country. Now we have a religious extremist, Islamic religious extremist, who's overseeing the purge of Christians and Alawites. Is that better? That doesn't seem like a win.
One of the things you said is he was taken out by our allies. I don't think that's right. Israel didn't take Assad out. What happened, and I'll tell you.
What about Turkey?
Turkey didn't take him out. So it was interesting. I had a long.
How did Assad get kicked out?
Yeah. When Netanyahu was in D.C. a couple of months ago, he and I sat down for a couple of hours. He's a good friend of mine. And we talked actually about Syria. He made an interesting point that I've not heard anywhere else, in that he said he believes what toppled Assad was when Israel took out Nasrallah. Nasrallah was the head of Hezbollah, and they took him out. And he made an interesting point. He said it's fascinating how a charismatic leader, and Bibi said, look, Nasrallah was a very effective terrorist leader. And when they took him out, that power base was supporting Assad. And that ultimately, in Bibi's analysis, removed the support from Assad and toppled him. But they weren't trying to take out Assad. My view now, I don't know.
So you don't think that, and I don't, it is very confusing, and I don't know that anyone really knows all the details, but you don't think that Israel or Turkey or NATO ally Turkey played any role in toppling Assad?
I don't know. I don't know that they did. Look, my understanding.
Turkey, I don't see what they really would have done. I mean, maybe I don't know enough about Turkey or Erdogan, but I don't see what they would have done. Israel would have come out and said something if they had any hand in the Assad regime falling. You know that they would have tried to take so much credit for that. So I don't think Mossad or anyone else had anything to do with the Assad regime falling. But yeah, I mean, I think it's as we were told. Like he fled. There was no like final point of revolution, like violent revolution against the regime. He just realized, my time's up. I can't hold on to this reign anymore. It's time to get the fuck out of here, and he fled to Moscow.
Of that, they clearly took out Nasrallah and Hezbollah. They've decimated Hezbollah, but
For
Hezbollah
sure.
was waging war on them. So decimating Hezbollah was very good for Israel and very good for America too. I mean, Hezbollah hated us.
They hated the institutions.
I would put Assad in the category of an unintended consequence, and whether it's good or bad, I don't know. I think time will tell.
For the United States.
Yeah, for the United States. I think time will tell the new leadership there. You're right to be concerned.
Fuck about Muslim people, bruh. I do not
Let
care
me step
about
back
Arab
and let's
people.
talk regime change generally. I mentioned Syria. I also opposed the Iraq War. I think the Iraq War was a serious mistake. And we...
Okay, so this one isn't. It's the same shit. Oh, they have weapons of mass destruction. We have to fucking bomb them into oblivion until they get rid of all their weapons of mass destruction. When, Iran is literally... all they want is to use uranium for energy. That's all they want. And now their sovereignty has been attacked, and they're defending it. And we're trying to escalate with them.
We have a pattern, and going back to this binary of the
Insanity.
interventionist and the isolationist. The interventionists advocate over and over again, there's a bad guy, there's a dictator who's doing bad things to his people, and they say, let's go topple him. And you have dictators in the Middle East who are killing radical Islamic terrorists. We come in and topple them. The radical Islamic terrorists take over, and they start killing Americans. In my view, how the heck does that help us? Like, Saddam Hussein was a horrible human being. He murdered and tortured people. Unequivocally bad guy. But it got much worse after we toppled him. And you ended up having ISIS rise up. I mean, that was the cause of ISIS, was toppling Saddam Hussein. Same
Surprisingly correct take from Ted Cruz.
thing in
Not that he said he was against the war in... God, I feel like a fucking idiot. President of Iraq. So was he... Wait. So... We overthrew Saddam Hussein in Iraq. And then ISIS was formed. And then, because of all the bombing we did in Iraq... Well, no, that was Al-Qaeda. That was this guy. Wait, what, Pakistan? What? I didn't know that. Dude, I don't know enough about these fucking people. Afghan Mujahideen against the Soviet Union and supported the Bosnian Mujahideen during the Yugoslav wars. God damn, dude. Yeah, oh yeah, we armed the Mujahideen to fight the Soviet Union. And then he turned around and started doing terror attacks because we, well, let's see, why was... Bin Laden, okay, so, basically... Okay, so he's originally Saudi. So when the war ended, Bin Laden organized the Al-Qaeda organization to carry on armed jihad against other countries, primarily against the United States. If you don't know, jihad is like the sixth pillar of Islam. It encompasses almost any effort to make personal and social life conform with God's guidance, such as internal struggle against evil in oneself. I'm assuming it also talks about... struggle to defend Islam, literally meaning struggle, the term is most frequently associated with warfare. So this also means struggle. That's interesting. There are a lot of words for struggle, because there's this, and there's also like intifada, and there's also there's another term that is also the M in Hamas. Mukawama, meaning resistance. Yeah, resistance, which is also what intifada means, but intifada can also mean struggle. You know, a lot of ties. So that's probably why people hear this word, and I mean, if you hear jihad, like obviously that is Quran, spiritual, religious and spiritual struggle, and to war and physical struggle. Striving in the path of God. Sense of self-exertion. Predominantly warfare, greater child for spiritual emotional. Further emigration or war. Quran specifies war in self-defense or in response to aggression towards other Muslims. However, the sword verses have historically been interpreted to renounce other verses and justify offensive war against unbelievers, forcefully converting polytheistic pagans during the early Muslim conquest. So this is the part that like extremist groups have taken to enact justice against non-Muslims that have attacked Muslims. So this says track self-defense or in response to aggression towards other Muslims, which the U.S. has incited lots of violence towards Muslims. Not that what Al Qaeda has done is right or justified at all. It is terror attacks, but nonetheless, we created this guy in multiple different ways. Better than the CIA's funding. Not an Afghan. Is informally cooperated with the. Is this ISIL or ISI? I don't know. Probably ISIL. Most indirectly benefiting from CIA's funding, according to bin Laden himself, Arab volunteers from Pakistani-based camps, underwent training led by Pakistani and American officers. Pakistani and American officers. Weapons provided by U.S. funds provided by Saudi Arabia. Oh, goodness. Wow. Yeah, the CIA has just never done anything good. I mean, goddamn. So this guy was killed in 2006. Or was he killed, or was he just... Oh, he was convicted by Iraqi High Tribunal. So we did work, I guess, with Iraq to a degree. I don't know.
In Libya, you had Gaddafi, another horrible guy, that under Obama, we toppled him, and you ended up having radical Islamic warlords taking over. And so, and it's the question I asked in Syria. Okay, well, what's the plan? And how is this good or bad for the United States? And so I don't think, with Iran, I view Iran as very different from Iraq.
But up to that point, you say we disagree. I don't hear really anything.
I mean,
I'm not quite sure what happened in Syria, but I don't know. So, right. But other than that, I don't hear anything I disagree with at all.
Yeah.
Sounds like we're in a complete agreement. I wonder, though, is there a successful regime change that the United States supported that you're aware of in the last 100 years?
Sure. Defeating the Soviet Union and the Soviet Union collapsing, winning the Cold War. That was the most consequential step for U.S. national security interests of our lifetimes.
Yeah, because communism bad.
Okay.
And
so you
obviously it was the Cold War. I know there were nukes involved, but still, that was the fundamental basis of why we were at nuclear war. So
Classify that as a regime change that we affected?
Red Scare.
Absolutely.
That's why.
And look, you and I are in my office. We're sitting next to a painting of Reagan in front of the Brandenburg
One
Gate.
of the worst
and
presidents of
up
all
top are the words "Tear down this wall" in German, in the style of the graffiti.
Right.
And I think those are the most important words any leader has said in modern times. And if you look.
That is so fucking ironic, bro. Tear down the wall. Tear down the wall. Except the one to Mexico. We should build that one.
Look at how Reagan waged the Cold War. And Reagan is very much my model for how to. I actually think how Reagan took on the Soviet Union is exactly how we should take on China. Now, starting from the point.
What?
Look, Reagan was not an interventionist. In 8 years, the biggest country Reagan ever invaded was Grenada. He was very reluctant to use U.S. military force.
Invaded. That's an interesting word. Invaded implies the military, but Reagan was involved, as we read, Reagan was involved in coups in multiple countries via the CIA and, like we read, the Contras. And was Chile also under? I already forgot who did this. So, okay, 1973. And okay, so this was Nixon, which is crazy because he was also doing Vietnam, but nonetheless. So I was wrong. Reagan was not involved in Chile, but nonetheless. It's just crazy to say. He was very reluctant to use U.S. military force. He just was cool with selling weapons to Iran and then funding a right-wing militia in order to overthrow the Nicaraguan government. Other than that, though, he was very reluctant to use any military force.
He didn't respond after the 83 barracks bombings.
You're right. Yep. He made the judgment that the risk exceeded the benefits. And that's a very rational decision to make. And it's reflected. Trump has made those same decisions where...
No, he is actively not doing that, bro. Stop. Like, zip it up, man. He's not gonna fuck you.
He is willing to use military force, but he very much asks, okay, is this good or bad for America? Does this endanger U.S. servicemen and women or not? And one of the points about the Cold War, look, nobody in their right mind wanted a shooting war between America and the Soviet Union. The two biggest nuclear powers on Earth firing bullets at each other is really unhealthy for human beings. Same thing is true with China. Nobody with any sense says, hey, let's go to war with China. That's really dumb, and a whole lot of people could die. But the Cold War showed we've got lots of tools short of sending the Marines to fight against a regime. And one of the most important tools is the bully pulpit. And so when I say I support regime change, I actually think just simply laying out what the Ayatollah does. And so I spend a lot of time, I speak to Iranian dissident groups. I speak out against human rights abuses. I think shining a light on the depravity of leaders is a really powerful tool that America has.
Should we limit our activity to that?
It depends. Again,
because the U.S. government pays opposition groups, militarized opposition groups in Iran to overthrow the government. We've done that in a lot of different places, as you know. I'm not saying it's bad, but that's very different from what you're describing. You're saying,
why is that not bad, Tucker? What the fuck do you mean?
Moral cases we did for 7 years with the Soviets. Our system works, yours doesn't.
Yep.
And I think we made a credible case for that, and we beat them over 70 years economically.
And that was a huge part of it.
Right. I think everyone would agree that was the main part of it. We didn't beat them in Vietnam. on North Korea.
The main part of it, but it was tied to a military buildup. So I think it was two things. It was one, the clarity. So Reagan came in and he described the Soviet Union as an evil empire.
Right.
And all of the intelligentsia in D.C., all the Democrats, all the media, they're like, what a horrible thing to say. You can't say that. Reagan went to the United Kingdom and he said, Marxism, Leninism will end up on the ash heap of history. People were horrified. They asked him, all right, what's your strategy in the Cold War? He said, very simple. We win, they lose. And that was all viewed as sort of a Philistine simplicity. And I think it was exactly right. And laying that out, speaking. Do you know the backstory behind the Berlin Wall speech?
Yeah, I do. Yes.
You probably know Peter Robinson, who was the speechwriter.
Yes.
So 3 times the State Department deleted those words from that speech. And 3 times Reagan wrote it back. And the State Department argued, they said, Mr. President, you can't say this. This is too bellicose. This is too provocative. And my favorite, they said, this is too unrealistic. The Berlin Wall will stand till the end of time. And Reagan said, look, this is the whole point of the speech. And less than 3 years after Reagan gave that speech, the Berlin Wall was torn to the ground. And it wasn't knocked down by American Army tanks. We didn't shoot missiles at it. It was shining truth and light that tore it down. It was also rebuilding the American military. It was what was then pejoratively called Star Wars, where the Soviet Union, their economy couldn't match our military buildup, and it bankrupted them. That's an example of peace through strength.
I wonder, I mean, is there anybody who was alive in 1989 who wouldn't trade that America for the one we live in now? There's not one person, I don't think.
Oh, sure.
But, I mean, just the basic metrics, debt, suicide rate, life expectancy, it was... I wonder why, after that victory, America did...
I doubt that it's better. What the fuck? Okay. I'm gonna come back to this another day. It's a long interview. It's 2 hours long. We're 20 minutes in, and I'm already... My mouth is dry. I've been live for... fucking long forever. Oh, I need to fix my bit rate. No! No! Unstable. Ooh. Okay. Let's turn to something else. Yeah. There's a volcano going off in Hawaii. That's kind of crazy. Let's take a look at that. It looks like it's not affecting anyone, so that's good. Hawaii's Kilauea volcano sent jets of lava shooting over 1,000 feet into the air early Friday morning, marking another explosive episode for the active volcano. Volcano, 30 local time Thursday. Observatory. Small sporadic spattering and lava outflows. By the time went on, the activity continued increasing intensity. 1,000 feet. That's a lot of feet, dude. Volcanic cloud about 15,000 feet into the air. The observatory warned of blue include hazards, including strands of volcanic glass known as Pele's hair and rock fragments called tephra. These hazards, along with volcanic gas, can have far-reaching effects downwind. Winds around the volcano are blowing from the north, so these fragments may be distributed south of the caldera, the observatory said. I thought they said they were gonna talk about the cause. What the hell? We're not gonna talk about the cause at all. Well, I guess it's not as unique as I thought, but that's okay. Series of episodes of politics between the current eruption began on December 23rd, 2024, and has seen about one eruption per week since then. Wow. That's crazy. So it's erupting. It's just not like huge eruptions, I guess. I don't know. I read this. I saw this video and I was like, oh shit, like it's going crazy. But no, it's just a little baby eruptions. I say baby. This is still probably like over 100 feet in the air, but still kind of cool. I don't know why they don't have any sound, but
doing to that process. And, it was mentioned earlier by Iranian officials that the discussions that were expected to be included were the nuclear matter as well as regional developments following the Israeli aggression.
this is not true.
Iran has not officially been demanding the other sides to mediate for the escalation or ending the conflict. It has said that by the time that Israeli attacks continue, Iran will try to reserve its right to self-defense. But in the meantime, this could be kind of pressure on the Western parties in order to put pressure on Israel to stop the aggression. But it's a kind of, let's say, impasse that, we cannot expect a progress on the nuclear matter as long as the aggression continues. But
so Ambassador, if I could jump in,
meantime,
how much faith or confidence do Iranian officials have in European mediation when we've seen the European powers were unable to salvage the last nuclear agreement when the Trump administration pulled out? The decision of war now, whether the US goes to war, is in the hands of Donald Trump. It's not in the European hands. How much faith and confidence are Iranian officials placing in their talks with Europeans?
Sami, Iran does not have a good record of European, role in terms of nuclear deal. Back in early 2003, Iran clinched an agreement with three European countries, but the US didn't keep to that agreement and it collapsed. And following the 2015 nuclear deal that was working for a couple of years, the US withdrew from the deal. Europeans were not able to compensate that. And before Trump taking office in the United States, Iran was engaged in discussions with three European countries, and they were not able to offer something, meaningful to Iran. And at this moment, I think that's a test for them, but the precedence is not promising. And that's why, but Iran, in the meantime, wanted to give diplomacy a chance at this context. But prior to this meeting,
strikes on civilian nuclear facilities could plunge the world into an unseen catastrophe. It definitely could, and Israel's been very carefree about just bombing nuclear facilities. Like they're actively trying to bomb them. Shiraz, Avaz, and Bushehr as Israel launches more attacks. I wonder what the targets are there. It's more bullshit, man. That's what it is, man. More bullshit.
But the Center for Middle East Strategic Studies.
Okay, this guy was not
My pleasure.
defending Israel like I thought. My bad, bro. Gaza Health Ministry says at least 5,334 Palestinians killed since Israel broke ceasefire in March. That is 3 months. 5,000 people in 3 months. And that's just that they've been able to count. I mean, the fact that Palestinians are I don't know. They're the strongest people on this planet.
all of these attacks are already causing further civilian casualties, pushing people into further internal and forced displacement, and of course leaving behind trails of devastation and destruction. And as of this moment, many of the enforced evacuation orders by the Israeli military are being reissued one more time, just pushing people and cramming them in a small part of the western part of Gaza City. We're talking about the entire northern part of the strip, including the city of Beit Hanun, Beit Lahia, and part of Jabalia. A major part of Jabalia city and Jabalia refugee camp residents have been pushed into the internal and forced displacement, all here in the western part of Gaza City. Once again, one would have imagined that the tension between Iran and Israel would have brought a respite for Gazans across the strip, but contrary, what we're seeing on the ground is a significant increase of these air attacks that are already causing further civilian casualties and serve the tension between Iran and Israel, of course, as many people have already expressed, that as a distraction from the ongoing machine of killings that have been targeting people throughout the past days and since the eruption of exchange of fire between these two countries. What worries people the most right now is that the Israeli military is taking advantage of this distraction and commit more massacres and kill more Palestinians. As of this moment, we're seeing Palestinians dying at a record number, and we can count as many as a lot of them due either at the distribution centers or inside their tents or simply walking in the streets between the displacement sites and the streets. Hani Mahmoud, Al Jazeera from Gaza City, Palestine.
Very brave man.
A group of activists have broken into Britain's largest Royal military aircraft. Footage posted online by Palestine Action shows a protester riding an electric scooter and spraying red paint on a plane. The group says it's opposed to the UK's support for Israel in its war on Gaza. The Ministry of Defence has condemned the incident, says it's investigating the security breach. Israeli warplanes have hit
They sprayed it and they disabled it.
The strikes hit Hezbollah rocket launchers. Israel frequently hits what it says are Hezbollah targets, including in the capital Beirut. That's despite a ceasefire being in effect since November last year. In a region shaped by shifting alliances and historical fault lines, few relationships are as layered as the one between Turkey and Iran. They're neighbors, rivals, and at times reluctant partners. As part of our series on regional power dynamics, we take a closer look at how these two nations navigate competition, cooperation, and the growing pressure of global uncertainty. Sinem Kosoğlu reports from Istanbul.
This vast frontier is one of the few in the Middle East not drawn by colonial powers and hasn't changed since 1639. The Treaty of Kasr-Shirin ended a war between the Ottoman and Safavid empires, laying the foundation for a rivalry that still shapes modern-day relations between Turkey and Iran. Not quite friends, never full enemies. From 1923 to 1979, ties remained cautious but steady, shaped by modern Turkey's founder Mustafa Kemal Atatürk and the Shah of Iran, who shared a vision of secular reform and resistance to foreign influence.
What one side lacks, the other gives. Turkey imports gas from Iran, while Iran, under sanctions, struggles to produce electricity, which Turkey exports. This interdependence pushes them from strategic cooperation and manage tensions pragmatically.
The relations were challenged after Iran's 1979 Islamic Revolution. Turkey's secular state viewed the new government in Tehran as a threat, fearing an export of ideology. Following the 1980 coup in Turkey, Iran backed Sunni Islamic groups challenging the republic. And during the Iran-Iraq War of the 1980s, Turkey stayed neutral but felt the fallout.
Despite overlapping interests, Turkey and Iran lack a shared vision and often compete rather than cooperate. Like in Syria, where one's gain is seen as the other's loss, yet both avoid direct confrontation not to weaken their regional standing. This is institutionalized dependence.
Despite tensions in Syria, Turkey and Iran co-managed the Astana peace process until Ankara expanded its role last year, prompting Iran's supreme leader to accuse Turkey of occupation. And after Israel launched its war on Gaza, Iranian media accused President Recep Tayyip Erdogan of hypocrisy, calling his pro-Palestinian stance political, since Turkey has had a trade relationship with Israel.
Yeah.
Still, economic ties
Turkey provides a lot of energy to Israel specifically.
between ethnic Turks in Iran and more than 3 million Iranian tourists visiting Turkey last year. The relationship runs deep, even as trade has dipped to $6 billion since its 2016 peak. And today, after Israel's deliberate strikes on Iran, Turkey walks a careful line, publicly defending Iran's rights, pushing for de-escalation, while preparing militarily and diplomatically. Sinem Köseoğlu, Al Jazeera. While preparing, publicly defending Iran's rights, pushing for de-escalation, while preparing militarily and diplomatically. Sinem Köseoğlu, Al Jazeera, Istanbul.
Still ahead on Al Jazeera.
I am Ahmed Idris on the Chad-Sudan border. Funding cuts and donor fatigue has left 500,000 Sudanese refugees who crossed into eastern Chad with no shelter and little access to food, health care, and education.
Wow. That, I think, is all I'm going to cover today. Important updates on Israel and Iran may keep coming in, but yeah, overall, the U.S. doesn't know what the fuck is gonna do yet. Israel is gonna keep, bombing indiscriminately. Iran is gonna keep launching missiles. We shall see what happens. I'm gonna keep watching this at a later date. It's a long video. I think it's a lot of stuff to cover. I disagree with both of these guys on a lot of things, but Tucker Carlson is putting the heat on Ted Cruz, and I do want to witness that, so we will return to this. But for now, me and my penis,